But steadily, the investigation into Donald Trump's attempt to reverse his election loss in Florida is moving, or pardon me, Georgia, very different state. It is moving forward. The district attorney in Fulton County in Georgia is quietly building this case to see if the former president's actions were criminal, and CNN's Sarah Murray has new details this morning. What's happening here?
Well, look, there was a lot of splash when she first announced this investigation earlier this year. Since then, you may not have heard as much, but that doesn't mean she hasn't been working quietly behind the scenes, building a case against former President Trump.
So all of a sudden, we have a rigged election.
As Donald Trump plans a return to the Peach State for a rally next week and continues to air his baseless election grievances.
I won both of them. It's amazing.
The Trump investigation is ongoing.
Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis quietly plowing ahead in her investigation into Trump's efforts to overturn Georgia's 2020 election results. Willis's team has been conducting interviews, collecting documents, and trying to build a line of communication with congressional committees investigating the January 6th insurrection, sources tell CNN.
People are being interviewed, things are being researched. It's where any unindicted case would be.
Willis working discreetly as she tries to determine whether Trump's efforts to overturn Georgia's election results were criminal.
As a district attorney, I do not have the right to look the other way on any crime that may have happened in my jurisdiction.
Her team poring over records from the Georgia Secretary of State's office, including Trump's January call to Brad Raffensperger that set Willis's investigation in motion, sources tell CNN.
All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
Sources familiar with the matter say investigators have already interviewed a handful of staffers in Raffensperger's office, including Chief Operating Officer Gabrielle Sterling, who loudly dismissed Trump's bogus claims of fraud during the election.
There is no shredding of ballots going on. That's not real. It's not happening.
Willis also clearly eager to strike a formal cooperation agreement with congressional investigators. The January 6th Select Committee has already requested records of communications between the Trump White House and Georgia officials, as well as communications from others in Trump's orbit, like former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Trump's former lawyer, Rudy Giuliani.
It is certainly information that my office needs to see.
A source familiar with the matter says there has been some staff-level contact between Willis's office and congressional committees, though another source cautions there's no active information sharing so far. For Willis, who took office earlier this year in January, the Trump investigation is a juggling act.
There's no question she has an inordinate amount of pressure on her. If you just remember that she's elected by the people of Fulton County. And while the Trump investigation may get more press on a national basis, she clearly has to respond to the voters who elected her.
Willis faces rising violence in the Atlanta region and an avalanche of backlog cases, a product, she says, of the pandemic and mismanagement by her predecessor.
We're dealing with a 11,000 case backlog. They are some of your most serious and violent offenders.
She's been pleading with local officials for more funds and more staff.
I'm drowning. I need help.
Pledging to fight crime.
My #1 priority is to make sure that we keep violent offenders off the street.
Without backing off her investigation into Trump.
We're going to do it until it's done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the Georgia Secretary of State's office was also conducting their own investigation into the calls Trump made to officials there, but a source tells us they've essentially deferred that as long as the Willis investigation is ongoing. We, of course, reach out to Trump's team for comment. They didn't get back to us, Brianna.
You think he's worried about this one?
You know, I think he's probably more worried about New York at the moment, but it does seem like the DA in Georgia has no interest in letting this go. So it could certainly be a concern for him going forward.
We know you will continue to follow it indeed. Sarah Murray, thanks for the report.
And now the other news this Monday night, President Trump and the recorded conversation, the phone call with the top Georgia election official, pressuring him to change the results in Georgia that determined that he lost to Joe Biden, asking him to find 11,780 votes and saying there's nothing wrong with saying you've recalculated. Tonight, the fallout. And here's our chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl.
Donald Trump's campaign swing to Georgia tonight is now overshadowed by what may be the biggest political crisis yet of his presidency. A secretly recorded phone call where he urged Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to overturn the presidential election there by finding enough votes to put him ahead of Joe Biden.
There's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated. So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. So what are we going to do here, folks? I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
Again and again, 19 times, Trump mentioned the number of additional votes he'd need to win Georgia, offering up an avalanche of unfounded conspiracy theories. But Raffensperger bluntly corrected him.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
Trump tries to appeal to Raffensperger as a fellow Republican.
You should want to have an accurate election. And you're a Republican.
We believe that we do have an accurate election.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
He also appears to threaten the Secretary of State with criminal prosecution.
You know what they did, and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal offense, and you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you and to Ryan, your lawyer. That's a big risk.
To be clear, the Secretary of State committed no crime. But tonight there are questions about whether the president did by pressuring a state election official to change election results.